Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, President Bongbong Marcos convenes the security cluster and orders an investigation into the collisions of Chinese ships and Philippine vessels in the West Philippine Sea. The government files a fresh protest against China and summons its envoy to explain. And later, lawmakers seek the passage of the Maritime Zones bill seen to push foreign nations to comply with Philippine laws in its territorial waters. National Security Council Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya joins us in the program. President Bongbong Marcos convened the government's top security officials to give guidance to agencies dealing with the new wave of Chinese aggression in the West Philippine Sea. He ordered the Coast Guard to conduct an investigation into the collisions of Chinese ships and Philippine vessels in the West Philippine Sea. The results are expected by the end of the week. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have National Security Council Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya. Sir, good morning. Welcome to the source, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Pinky. Thank you for having me.
So the president held a command conference yesterday. I believe it was around the same time that you, together with three other officials of the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea, also held a press conference. So obviously, sir, you were not part of the command conference, but Secretary Anya was there. Did he share any information with you, sir?
Well, I knew that there was going to be a command conference. It started at around 8:30 in the morning. In our press con was around 9:30.
That's right.
And then immediately after the press con, I had a brief conversation with NSA Anya about what happened in Malacanang.
Tell us more about that. What can you share?
Well, what I can share right now is that the security cluster, including the president, is taking this event that happened last Sunday, which is the collision between two Philippine vessels with Chinese vessels, very seriously. And in fact, they are considering taking more resolute steps, to respond to this increased provocation and increased aggression coming from the People's Republic of China. So, as you said in your report, the president has directed the Philippine Coast Guard to conduct a thorough maritime investigation to dispute the Chinese narrative, to dispute the position coming from China. And I would presume immediately after that report is submitted to the president, another cabinet cluster meeting will be called to discuss future steps in response to this increased provocation.
A number of questions with what you said. Just to follow up, when you say more resolute steps, what are these steps? What are these options?
Yes. Unfortunately, Pinky, because of national security concerns, we cannot share those to the public right now. We cannot telegraph our moves to China. Beijing does not telegraph their moves to the Philippines. So why should we, considering this is CNN, I'm sure they're monitoring us right now. So I cannot share those, but I was told, that it's a more resolute response in reply to the increased provocations by Chinese vessels to our royal mission to a UN show.
Fair enough, sir. However, when you say more resolute response, this is obviously going to go beyond summoning the Chinese envoy, filing diplomatic protests. Not that that's not important, but it means it's going to go beyond those. Some steps that we've actually seen in the past. These are actions we've seen in the past over and over again.
Well, to be fair to the Philippine government, this is just the second time the third time, that we have summoned the Chinese ambassador under this administration. So the decision to summon the Chinese ambassador is not a decision taken lightly. It is only done during increased provocation or high tensions with the Chinese counterparts, with the Chinese side. So, we can perhaps speculate, that whatever steps that will be taken by the Philippine government moving forward will be something new and not, as you said, the usual response that we do whenever we have
Eh,
such incidents at
And
sea.
I hope you understand, sir, not that I'm taking that lightly at all, but I guess what I'm trying to say, as mentioned a while ago, these actions have been done in the past. For example, as you mentioned, thank you for that clarification, that the Chinese envoy, Wang Zhilian, has been summoned, you said, 3 times. You said 3 times. This since
Yes.
President Marcos took office. So we're talking about the Chinese envoy being called 3 times in what, sir? 16 months?
Yes. And, calling the Chinese envoy is not a run-of-the-mill decision. No, it is a strong statement coming from the Philippine government that that we protest, that we are condemning strongly, and we don't just want to send a note to you or a paper to you. We want you to hear it from us directly. So I that was the message that we sent.
Yeah.
But as I was told, no,
He
there
was
will be
not,
future actions that will be
yeah.
undertaken by the cabinet and by the president. But we have to wait for the proper time when this is shared to the public.
Right. The Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, however, was not present when summoned, and he sent his deputy. Isn't that correct, sir?
Yes, he was out of the country, so the deputy chief of mission was the one who represented the Chinese embassy.
Any information on the kind of exchange that happened during that time when the representative of the Chinese envoy was called?
Well, unfortunately, I do not know. No, yesterday, I was beside Ambassador Tess Lazaro at the National Security Council, and I did ask her what was the response of the Chinese side. But at that time, she also did not know, and we have not been in contact since yesterday's press conference.
Yeah. You're talking about the DFA spokesperson, sir, you mean?
Yes, Ambassador Tess
Yes,
Dasa.
Ambassador
Sorry,
Tess, yeah.
Tess Dasa.
Okay.
I got my officials mixed up.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, you were beside me. The four of you were there. DFA spokesperson, Ambassador Tess Daza, yourself, sir, the spokesperson of the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, and the spokesperson of the AFP is also Colonel Medel Aguilar. The four of you were present in yesterday's press conference. Before I go to that, because there's a number of questions I want to ask too, although I do understand you gave a detailed, all of you gave a detailed account of what happened last Saturday night till Sunday. Sinabi po kasi ni Secretary Gibot Eudoro kahapon during the, I believe, right after the command conference or during, that what happened was a blatant violation of international law. China has no legal right or authority to conduct law enforcement on our territorial waters and EEZ. And as you mentioned a while ago, he did say that the government is taking this incident seriously. You said more resolute actions. I guess the question really is while we cannot publicize what the government plans to do, I still go back to the question, sir, of the UNCLOS. Is there no way to be able to push China to comply with international laws?
Unfortunately, under our system, the global system right now, there is no international police, no, and the compliance with international law is dependent on the adherence of member states, no, to its compliance, no, adherence of member states. So, whenever we are asked why aren't we implementing the 2016 arbitral ruling, the Philippines is implementing the 2016 arbitral ruling by continuing to support our fishermen, by acting in the manner that the arbitral ruling requires us to do, which is supporting our fishermen with food and supplies so that they can fish freely in the West Philippine Sea, sending regular maritime patrols through the Coast Guard and the Philippine Navy, continuing to supply our troops despite overwhelming odds. These are our ways of implementing the 2016 arbitral ruling. Now, we are also happy and glad that the Senate is now rushing the passage of the Maritime Zones Bill. And hopefully very soon, the Archipelagic Zones Z-Lanes Bill, because these two laws implement the 2016 arbitral ruling into domestic law. No, it's important that the decision of the arbitral tribunal are reaffirmed and implemented by the Philippines through domestic legislation. So all of these actions are what is required from the Philippines to implement our laws. Now, as to international compliance, we are happy that the United States, EU, many other countries support the Philippine position and are in fact conducting freedom of navigation flights and movements in the entire South China Sea. Because remember, Pinky, the claim of China is not just to the West Philippine Sea. It is across the entire length of the South China Sea. And when our allies, partners, and friends conduct their navigation, freedom of navigation movements in the entire South China Sea, including the West Philippines, they are in fact supporting the Philippines.
Right. That needs to be discussed further, though, because I know that there's no police force. We may have won the arbitral ruling, but the question always was, who will enforce this? As you mentioned, we enforce it in our way. The problem is, hindi po ito kinikilala ng China. But my question is, when you look at the UNCLOS, and I will read it, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, defines as exclusive economic zone as generally extending to 200 nautical miles from the shore, within which the coastal state has the right to explore, exploit, and the responsibility to conserve and manage both living and non-living resources. And let me highlight that there, as you see it, again, pinag-uusapan po natin dito 200 nautical miles mula po sa Palawan. So that is our EEZ. Ayungin is 105 nautical miles.
Okay.
China's nearest area is 600. So my question is, with regards to the UNCLOS, how much further can we push this? Can we defend the 200 nautical miles by saying, that's part of our 200 nautical miles under the UNCLOS, and you must comply. I think that's what I'm trying to say, sir. Pwede ho ba yun na para sa kanila, di kami kasali dyan sa UNCLOS?
Well, they are parties to the UNCLOS because they signed UNCLOS. And the 2016 arbitral ruling is very clear that the decision applies to both the Philippines and China. No, because China is saying we did not participate in the arbitral proceedings in The Hague.
Yes.
But UNCLOS provides for that provision as well. Its decisions are binding to both parties if the conditions of the convention are followed and if copies of the proceedings are sent regularly to the other party. And we gave copies. No, the tribunal, in fact, gave copies to the Chinese embassy in The Hague about all of the positions. And there were public statements made by China, which were considered by the arbitral tribunal. So China cannot claim that they did not take part. No, they did take part, and they are parties to the arbitral ruling. But as I said, no, Pinky, really, we should continue. No, the Philippines should continue to seek the support of other nations to help us enforce this ruling. No, and just keep at it, because Pinky, if you look at Chinese history, the Chinese have always taken a long view. No, lagi silang, they think in terms of generations. Tayo sa Pilipinas, we just think in terms of presidential terms. So we should take a long view here and just keep at it, just like the Chinese. They just keep at it, no? Their encroachment in the West Philippine Sea has been incremental, di ba? Dahan-dahan, kinuha muna nila yung Scarborough, kinuha nila yung padahan-dahan hanggat naka-build sila ng bases. And this did not happen in a short period of time.
Yeah.
This took decades. So I think for the Philippines, we all should take that kind of view, take a long-term view, no? And you know, if we exercise enough patience, I think we will be victorious in the end.
All right, we need to take a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, NSC Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya. I want to talk about the order of the President, sir, the Philippine Coast Guard investigation. Any word on how long this will take and when it should be submitted to the President?
Yes, the Philippine Coast Guard Commandant, the new one, no, Admiral Gavan, committed to give the results of the maritime investigation within 5 days. So I think by Friday or Saturday, the President should have a copy of the report.
All right. Is it still going to be a question, sir, if it's accidental or intentional?
No, I think the President is just exercising due diligence here, no? But I think it is clear to the world, to the entire public, despite the false narrative coming from the Chinese embassy and from the Chinese ministry
Yeah.
spokesperson,
Yeah. So
that what caused the collisions were in fact the dangerous maneuvers and dangerous blocking maneuvers of the Chinese Coast Guard and the Chinese Maritime Militia.
So going back to the press conference yesterday, sir, I was watching it. Again, a detailed account. It was the Chinese Coast Guard collided with Oneisa May 2, the resupply boat. And then the BRP Cabra was hit by the Chinese Maritime Militia. Could you explain to us, sir, what is the business of the Chinese Maritime Militias in the area?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly the question that we've been asking ourselves, because before, the Chinese Maritime Militia were just there for force projection. No, but now they are actively engaging in blocking our troops. No, before there was a semblance of deniability on the part of the Chinese government, because these Chinese maritime militias vessels, these vessels were just there. They were not actively conducting maneuvers in support of Chinese Coast Guard blocking efforts, no, to block our ships going to BRP Sierra Madre. But in the last 2 or 3 RORE missions, we have seen the Chinese maritime militia vessels acting in a way that a Chinese Coast Guard vessel would do. So this actually proves to the public that the Chinese maritime militias are part of the what you call are not, first and foremost, they're not Chinese fishing vessels. No, they don't look like Chinese fishing vessels. In fact, they have a lot of antennas that would not qualify them as Chinese fishing vessels, and they are part of the entire structure of command of the Chinese Coast Guard, which is directly under the Chinese Military Commission. So they are really not white hulls. They are gray hulls disguised as white.
Opo. Gray, yung sinasabi po nating, pag sinasabi pong gray, yun po yung Navy na. Kapag white, yun po yung sinasabing Coast Guard. Is that correct, sir?
Yes. Yes, and Coast Guards are
So,
supposed to be civilian.
Yes, sir.
No?
Civilian in
Conducting
nature.
law enforcement.
Yeah. Kaya nga po, even in the past with the MDT, that was being discussed, kasama ho ba ang Coast Guard kapag nagkaroon ng armed attack? Because does that consider... Anyway, sir, I wanted to ask you this. So, because parang sa Tagalog po, nagpapanggap sila na civilian when in fact, nakadisguise naman po talaga sila na militar. Pero, yun pa rin po yung tanong ko eh. What is their business there, and bakit po ang dami nila? Because let's go to what China was saying, and I know this was asked yesterday as well. The action China says it took on the scene, they call that, sir, professional and restrained. That is professional and restrained. But again, that's nothing new. That's also something I've heard in the past, and something China has said, that their actions were professional and restrained. Yung winotor canon po yung ating resupply mission. Those were the words I think also used that time. If it's professional and restrained, must we prepare for a worst case scenario?
Which is why we're happy that the media is there. No, in this particular RORE mission, Wala yata sa CNN, but GMA, TV5, ABS-CBN
ABS,
was
yeah,
there,
yeah.
no, to make on-site, on-the-ground reports. And kaya yung Chinese government is always accusing the Philippines of media hyping,
Yeah.
no? Meaning the Chinese is protesting the presence of uh, local and international media in our ships or on site because it destroys their false narrative coming from the Chinese embassy. So
Yeah.
yung sinasabi nilang trade and professional, hindi na namin kailangan ipaliwanag sa mundo, no, or sa ating bansa
Yeah.
or sa mundo,
Hindi
to
na
the general
kayong
public,
nagsasabi na,
that
hindi
it
na
is not
kayo,
trade and
yeah,
professional
hindi,
because the media themselves saw it and they can report it as first-hand
yeah,
witnesses.
hindi na po kayong nagkukwento, yung media na po yung nagkukwento, yung journalist na po yung nagkukwento, yung cameraman po yung nakakuha nito. In fact,
Yes.
in one of the reports I saw that the BRP Cabra was not hit once but twice.
Yes. And yung the Chinese narrative wherein um umaatras daw yung BRP Cabra, and it was BRP Cabra that hit the Chinese maritime militia vessel 0003, is belied by reports coming from the media on board the PCG vessel na just to prevent collision, the BRP Cabra captain stopped the engine, but it was the Chinese maritime militia vessel that continued to move, which then caused the collision. So, kaya sila nagagalit sa presence ng mga media
Yeah.
and the media hyping because they
Okay.
are
Okay.
losing the information war
Yeah.
insofar as this incidents are concerned.
And very quickly, I know it was asked, tinanong po kay, sa inyo kahapon yun eh, paano naman po yung sinasabi ng China na tayo yung nag-dangerous maneuvers? I remember ang sinabi niyo ata, nakuha lang nila yun sa ere. Wasn't that you that said that
Yeah.
yesterday?
Yes. Yes, kasi yes, nasasanay na kasi tayo, Pinky, parang nasasanay na ako personally sa mga false narrative coming from China. That no, for example, dun sa Baho de Masinloc, they claimed that the act of the Philippines cutting the barrier, no, the fishing barrier that they placed there
The
was
floating barriers.
self-staged.
Yeah.
So, gawa-gawa lang daw natin 'yon. So we should always take the Chinese narrative as
Okay.
take it with a grain of salt and make decisions for ourselves utilizing the facts and the proofs that
All right.
both government and embedded media has presented.
We'll take another short break. We'll be right back. Our source today, NSC Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya. Sir, will this trigger the MDT, the MDT, sir?
No, unfortunately not, because as stated in the MDT, an armed attack on a public vessel of the Philippines will be enough to trigger the Mutual Defense Treaty. However, there was no armed attack, so there would be no basis for us to trigger the MDT.
Siguro there will be critics that will say, ano pa ang silbi nitong MDT, sir?
Oh, that would be unfair to the Philippines and to the United States, no? Because the MDT is the mother of all of our agreements with the US. It is the mother of the EDCA. It is the mother of the VFA, no? So
Okay.
if the MDT cannot be seen solely as an offensive,
Yeah.
manner, no, offensive tool, but it is also the bedrock of our security relations with the United States.
And I heard Ambassador Daza saying yesterday, it does not trigger because it's not an armed attack, but sabi niya, this will be studied. I remember she said that. Sir, very quickly, how about joint patrols? Ito po, joint patrols to serve as a neutral force to mediate sa West Philippine Sea.
Yes, we have started the joint patrols. We had one already, and there will be future joint patrols, not only with the United States, but also with other like-minded countries. So
Such
we
as?
should look forward to that.
Such as?
Japan has expressed interest to join the joint patrols. Australia has also joined interest. So it could be a multilateral joint patrols with nations who support the Philippine position.
Maraming salamat, NSC Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya. Sir, I hope to speak to you again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.